a very warm welcome to World Panorama, the show that gives you a 360-degree view of major global events of the week. I'm Sana Khan. Before we bring you detailed reports, here's a look at this week's top stories. Arab League meets in Baghdad, calls on Syria to implement UN peace plan soon. BRICS nations stress upon the need for global economic order, indicating a shift in power equations as well. Pope Benedict XVI calls for greater freedoms as he ends his Cuba tour, wraps up his visit by meeting revolutionary icon Fidel Castro. And Tiger Woods wins first PGA title in 30 months, with Masters just days away. Can he get back to player who once ruled golf? Those were the top stories this week. Now, the Arab League held its meeting in Baghdad for the first time in more than 20 years. Fewer than half of Arab world leaders turned up, along with the UN Secretary General. Baghdad was in virtual lockdown due to the security risk, and there were at least 2 explosions in the city, some distance from the conference itself. At the top of the agenda was the crisis in neighboring Syria. What transpired in Baghdad? Is there a consensus on Syria? To answer some of these questions, I'm pleased to welcome Dr. Wael Awad, senior journalist. Thanks so much, sir, for joining me on the show today. Before we get to him, take a look at this detailed report. Arab leaders have urged a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria at a landmark summit in Baghdad, marred by a mortar attack near the Iranian embassy as the meeting opened. Arab leaders have endorsed a UN-backed peace plan for Syria, which they said should be implemented immediately and completely.
We can say there was hope when the Syrian government accepted the 6-point plan proposed by the joint envoy of United States and Arab League, Kofi Annan. We have to see the implementation, and this must be completed and sincere and immediate. And that has not happened yet, but God willing, it will happen.
Arab leaders pressed President Bashar al-Assad to act quickly on a UN-backed peace plan he has agreed to, having dropped their demand that he give up power. This even as continued clashes between Syrian security and rebels killed 15 people on Thursday.
We reiterate the call for a peaceful solution to end the crisis in light of the Arab League's resolutions and with respect for the Syrian people's desire to choose their system through democratic means in a way that meets their aspirations without foreign intervention. They should take advantage of the efforts of international envoys, especially the joint envoy, Kofi Annan.
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon also kept up pressure on Assad, saying he must put into action his acceptance to the 6-point peace plan.
I share Mr. Annan's view that this is an important initial step that could bring an end to violence and the bloodshed, provide aid to those people who are suffering, and create an environment conducive to a political dialogue that would fulfill the long-held legitimate aspirations of Syrian people. It is essential that President Assad put those commitments into immediate effect.
In Damascus, Assad celebrated as Annan's plan doesn't call for him to step down at all, but only to halt fighting and begin a dialogue in the country for reform. It was this limited demand that brought approval for the 6-point plan from the Syrian president and from his allies in Moscow and Beijing. All right, Dr. Awad, let me start by asking you, did anything substantial really come out of the Arab League meet? If so, then what and how can it really change Syria for the better?
I don't think there was a major things in the Arab League. Syria have already rejected the Arab League, whatever resolution they have come up. They said it's none of our concern because Syria was excluded from this meeting for the first time, unprecedented manner. So Syria felt that they have been kept out, so nobody should discuss Syria. Right. Nevertheless, Syria has been topping the agenda in the absence of Damascus. But because of the American pressure, because of the Western pressure on the Arab League that have brought it to the table, and they have realized that they failed militarily by arming the insurgents in Syria. Therefore, there was a call from the United States and the West that there is no military intervention in Syria. Let us search for a face-saving formula. So the face-saving formula was that the Arab League The Ban Ki-moon mission should be supported, a peaceful, a political solution, taking the government of Syria as a part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Right. Also, Dr. Awad, but many nations met in Baghdad, but there was a split in consensus over there because, some nations called for extreme action as far as Syria is concerned. Some nations are calling for a dialogue.
I think the rhetoric by some of the Gulf states have already been heard before this meeting during the Friends of Syria conference that held in Tunisia. They've raised their voices. They have come openly that they are willing to arm the insurgents. So therefore, it is an armed military interference infiltrated by the Al-Qaeda and the terrorist group who hijacked the real demand of the Syrian people. Syrian government have no concern to the Syrian government. These issues, what the Syrian government wants from the international community is to keep a halt to all these countries ambitious of doing an adventure in Syria by allowing the Syrian government to implement the political reforms and the economical reforms. If the Syrian government failed, then fair enough, then we have a say to say. But let the Syrian people decide their own future and their own, destiny.
Right. With that, let me also bring in the 6-point plan that has been put forth by Kofi Annan. What do you think about that 6-point plan? Is it really implementable? Will Syria be able to implement it? Because the president of Syria is known to make huge promises, but then, how much difficult or easy is it to put those points into action?
I think you said it rightly, Sana. The Syrian president made promises, but he implemented. And now to give him the benefit of doubt, he has accepted this 6 points from Kofi Annan, because these are the Syrian government calling. We call for cessation of all violence. Everybody, the whole international community knows that there are armed groups, perpetrators who have killed more than 3,000 soldiers and security officers. So the Syrian government, as a responsible state, which have led for a 40 years stability in a vulnerable region, now with military intervention and by insurgents, by Al-Qaeda elements, they're trying to destabilize the country. It is the responsibility of the state to bring back normalcy into the state. So when the international community, speaking in one voice of cessation of all violence from both the sides, allowing the political reforms, sit across the table, have a roundtable dialogue with all the strata of the Syrian society, then implement. I think that's what we want. We never wanted to Benghazi-like. We didn't wanted to see the sectarian violence in Syria, and nobody wanted to see that. In fact, the whole Syrians are aware and conscious of the plot that the West and the US are planning to implement with the hand of the Arab puppet regimes.
But with that, the pressure, you think is going to stay up from the West on Bashar al-Assad to step down, even though, you've said it earlier that he's not likely to go. He's still going to remain at the helm.
See, the Syrian government have the support of the public. The people, 55 to 60%, according to their own survey, still are behind the president.
Yeah, in fact, we saw him in that visit, so much backing that
he gave them a message very clearly when he went to Homs in your report, and he told the international community and the Arab leaders, your plot to topple the regime have failed. Your military intervention to cause bleeding of the Syrian people in the street failed. We are the Syrians who decide our future. The international community now is supporting the roadmap of Syria to go into reforms and implement it. Even Russia and China and the BRICs people have already welcomed the dialogue and welcomed Kofi Annan. I think if we all support the international community, stand one hand behind Kofi Annan, the Syrian government should be in a position to implement. It is also we have to take in consideration that those countries who have supported with the most sophisticated arms to the rebels should be ceased to do so, should be halted from doing so. So the government and the people of Syria should not be bleed at the cost of the external intention and ambition, vested interest to toppling the regime or for a regime change in Syria.
Right. We've seen so much really happen, Dr. Awad, in the past few months as far as Syria is concerned. So many international bodies coming together, trying to find a resolution. But at the end of it all, there's one question that the people of Syria as well as the world, that is concerned about Syria wants to know. Is there hope for Syria and for this crisis to end in the near future?
I think that's what we all the Syrians are hoping, that the Syrian people will stand up again will heal the wound that they have created, whether it is from the army side, whether it is from outside, whether from within the society. I think the Syrian people understand what we wanted really for our future. We are the only country who enjoyed more than 40 years of stability in a vulnerable region. So I think the Syrian people understand, and we are very ambitious. We wanted really to go forward and contribute what we have done in the Arab world affairs, and also in continuity of Syria steadfastness against any kind of occupation in the region. So unless the Syrian government stick to its own externals also policy and show to the world that it has a sovereign political decision to take on the Syrian issues, have proved again and again that the Syrian government will be able to lead the people of Syria out of such a crisis created from the outside world.
All right, Dr. Awad, we leave the discussion at a positive note that yes, there is hope for Syria and we might just see a resolution, because the international community sure is concerned about what's happening there. Thanks so much, Dr. Awad, for joining me here today on this discussion. We're heading for a short break now, but wait up for a special report on the 4th summit of BRICS nations. Stay tuned to World Panorama. Welcome back. This week was a week of summits across the world. The 4th BRICS summit in New Delhi, involving leaders of 5 of the fastest growing large economies of the world, pressed Western powers to cede more space in the global system as they blame the rich world's monetary policies for putting global economic stability in jeopardy. Through the New Delhi Charter, BRICS countries sought to translate their economic power into diplomatic clout, indicating a shift in global power equations. Take a look.
Leaders of Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa, or the BRICS nations, coming together in New Delhi to send out some strong messages to the rest of the world. Stressing on the need for a global economic order, the grouping demanded reforms in world financial bodies like World Bank and IMF. The BRICS leaders accused rich countries of destabilizing the world economy 5 years into the global financial crisis. The joint declaration, or the New Delhi Charter, observed this dynamic process of reform is necessary to ensure the legitimacy and the effectiveness of the fund. It is critical for advanced economies to adopt responsible macroeconomic and financial policies, avoid creating excessive global liquidity, and undertake structural reforms to lift growth that create jobs.
Speaking about the reforms of the International Monetary Fund, and these reforms should be accomplished till the end, and it should be done as we have agreed, within the framework of G20. And we should not put aside these problems because these problems are not solved.
The 5 BRICS nations that collectively account for nearly 40% of the world's population and about a quarter of its economic output signed an agreement to extend credit facilities in their local currencies, a step aimed at reducing the role of the dollar in trade between them. They also agreed to examine in greater detail an Indian proposal to set up a BRICS-led South-South Development Bank funded and managed by the BRICS and other developing countries.
Institutions of global political and economic governance created more than 6 decades ago have not kept pace with the changing realities of the world. While some progress has been made in international financial institutions, there is lack of movement on the political side. BRICS should speak with one voice on important issues such as the reform of the UN Security Council.
And with its economic clout growing, BRICS nations also asserted their political prowess. The joint declaration said the crisis over Iran's nuclear program should be resolved diplomatically and should not be allowed to escalate. It also recognized the right of Iran to pursue peaceful nuclear energy. The situation in Syria too came up during the summit.
We discussed the ongoing turmoil in West Asia and agreed to work together for a peaceful resolution of the crisis. We must avoid political disruptions that create volatilities in global energy markets and affect trade flows.
It has been projected that BRICS nations could even overtake the G7 countries in a few decades if they stay on course. Will the New Delhi Charter then become a reference point in changing global equations?
And leaders gathered for the second session that included all representatives from over 50 countries at the 2012 Seoul Nuclear Security Summit on Tuesday afternoon. The meeting's focus was on measures to protect nuclear materials and facilities and the prevention of illicit trafficking. What was missing from the agenda was North Korea and Iran's nuclear weapons programs. Critics say the summit was no more than a talking shop and that the next summit in the Netherlands could be the last.
The final communique from the Summit of World Leaders on Nuclear Security loosely calls for all vulnerable material to be secured in 4 years. But the long and vaguely worded document is light on specifics about how to cut the risk of atomic materials falling into the wrong hands. US President Barack Obama sent out several sharp messages to China to stop turning a blind eye to North Korea's defiance over its nuclear program.
There are still too many bad actors in search of these dangerous materials, and these dangerous materials are still vulnerable in too many places.
Chinese President Hu Jintao indicated he's taking the stalemate seriously and registering his concerns with Pyongyang, while Lee Myung-bak, president of the summit host nation South Korea, said the leaders reaffirmed the need to work harder for a safer world.
We must eliminate the source of nuclear proliferation and nuclear terrorism. Stick to the goals and principles of the UN Charter. Stick to the new security concept that features mutual trust, mutual benefit, equality and cooperation. Stick to using peaceful means to resolve hot issues and international disputes and create a favorable international environment for strengthening nuclear security.
We adopted the Seoul Communique unanimously. It suggests measures to stop nuclear and radiation terror, which should be taken by each country.
But what about the issues that the summit didn't touch upon? North Korea and Iran's disputed nuclear programs weren't even on the agenda, nor was North Korea's announcement of a planned rocket launch next month. So despite the grand international scale of the summit, critics say it could just end up as a talking shop.
Now, according to reports, North Korea has begun preparing for a rocket launch next month, despite international condemnation. The planned rocket launch has raised alarm bells around the world. The United States and its allies suspect the launch is a disguised long-range missile test and said it would contravene UN sanctions aimed at curbing North Korea's missile program.
These images, accessed from a Korean website, taken on Thursday, show that work to prepare the launch pad appears to be underway. Reclusive North Korea has said that it is merely sending a weather satellite into space, but South Korea and the United States say it is a distinguished ballistic missile test.
위성의 질량은 100kg이고 고도 500km인 태양동기 원 궤도를 따라 돌며 수명은 2년이라고 지적했습니다.
North Korea fired 2 short-range missiles off its west coast on Thursday, believed to be a part of a test to upgrade capabilities. Senior North Korean diplomat Ri Gun left for Germany for talks with the United States over food aid issues.
We will exchange our opinions. We will not deliver a message to them. We will just discuss whatever both sides are interested in.
Experts said the latest missile tests show the isolated state's military capabilities and is a backlash against international pressure.
North Korea says it's a satellite launch. However, it would become a nuclear missile if they load a nuclear warhead on it and would be used for military purposes. This is why international communities are worried about it.
The secretive North Korea has twice tested a nuclear device, but experts doubt whether it yet has the ability to miniaturize an atomic bomb to fit inside a warhead. The North has said the launch would take place between April 12th and 16th. The planned launch, which has even drawn criticism from ally China, will mark the 100th birth anniversary of state founder Kim Il-sung.
Time for a short break now. Lots of sports action is up next. What's more, this year could be a big one for golfer Tiger Woods. Stay tuned to find out. Thanks for staying with us. Let's now take a look at some of the other international news in our next report.
Pope Benedict XVI wrapped up a visit to Cuba with a call for respect of basic freedoms, pursuing his persistent prodding of the island's communist authorities to embrace change. After an open-air mass in Havana's Revolution Square and a meeting with revolutionary icon Fidel Castro, the 84-year-old pontiff used a final public appearance at the airport in the Cuban capital to convey his message. With President Raul Castro looking on, the Pope said he hoped the light of the Lord would help Cubans build a society of broad vision, renewed and reconciled. Pakistan's Supreme Court threatened Prime Minister Yusuf Raza Gilani with another contempt notice for not complying with its orders on the National Reconciliation Ordinance. Justice Ijaz Afzal Khan of the 7-member bench remarked that the court's orders should be implemented and another contempt notice would be issued against Gilani if he did not do so. The bench had adjourned the case till March 29th. Zardari, accused of graft, had been granted amnesty under the NRO, which was issued in 2007 by then-President Pervez Musharraf to facilitate the return of his wife, former Prime Minister Benazir Bhutto, and himself. Italian tax police have seized $1.46 billion worth of assets belonging to members of the Gaddafi family, including stake in top Italian companies, bank deposits and a Harley-Davidson at the request of the International Criminal Court. In a statement on Wednesday, the police said the assets included stakes in Italy's largest bank, Unicredit, oil and gas giant Eni, defense group Finmeccanica. The International Criminal Court in The Hague had ordered the seizure of assets worldwide in view of possible compensation claims by victims of Gaddafi's rule in Libya following the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi last year. Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney appeared on NBC's The Tonight Show with Jay Leno this week, talking about his rival Rick Santorum and the US strategy in Afghanistan. Romney, who is often perceived to struggle to connect with everyday voters, joined Leno for an interview that was at times serious and at times humorous. The former Massachusetts governor did not rule out picking Santorum for the vice presidential slot.
Now over to the sports arena. This has been a hectic week. Here's all the action from football to cricket and even golf.
Ferrari ace Fernando Alonso held off Sergio Perez of Sauber in a dramatic fashion to win his third Petronas Formula 1 Malaysia Grand Prix at the Sepang International Circuit and equal Michael Schumacher's record. Alonso's stunning win from 8th on the starting grid also saw him taking over the world champion lead on 35 points. Pole sitter Lewis Hamilton repeated his third-place finish from the opening race of the season in Melbourne last weekend, with Red Bull's Mark Webber in 4th and 2007 world champion Kimi Raikkonen 5th in his Lotus. Rahul Dravid, who recently announced his retirement, said his innings for India has humbled him. Dravid's comments came at a felicitation function organised for him by India's cricket body BCCI in Mumbai. Master blaster Sachin Tendulkar missed Rahul Dravid's felicitation ceremony. The batting maestro had to leave for London and said it was not possible to attend the function. Last year, Dravid retired from the limited overs format of the game after India's disastrous tour of England, where the team failed to win a single match. The stylish right-hander, one of cricket's most technically sound batsmen, also has 12 hundreds in one-day internationals, and while he will be unable to add to that tally, cricket fans will still be able to see him play in the IPL. PGA Tour fans had to wait for what seemed to be a never-ending 923 days to witness another official victory by Tiger Woods. But as the moment arrived in grand fashion, for the 7th time in his illustrious career, Woods claimed the Bay Hill Invitational in Orlando, Florida, this time in convincing fashion. He won at 13 under par and with a 5-stroke lead over distant second-place finisher, Northern Ireland's Graham McDowell. The event, hosted by golf legend Arnold Palmer, marks Woods' first victory since the BMW Championship in 2009.
And talking about showbiz, this week saw your favorite movie stars and music icons making news as well. Here's all the buzz.
A US man, Christopher Cheney from Jacksonville, Florida, has pleaded guilty to hacking into the email accounts of stars such as Scarlett Johansson and sending nude photos to celebrity websites. Cheney has admitted to 9 charges including unauthorized access to a computer and wiretapping. Prosecutors said that Cheney has accessed emails of more than 50 celebrities including Friends with Benefits star Mila Kunis, singer Christina Aguilera and High School Musical actress Vanessa Hudgens. Cheney was ordered to be held in custody until sentencing on 23rd of July, where he could face up to 60 years in prison. Titanic and Avatar film director James Cameron reached the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the ocean located in the Mariana Trench on Sunday. In the historic solo dive, Cameron used a specially designed submarine called Deep Sea Challenger to dive nearly 11 kilometers. He made the trip to the bottom in 2 hours 37 minutes. The exploration was a joint project by Cameron, the National Geographic Society and watchmaker Rolex, designed to expand knowledge of unknown portions of the Earth.
I will go to my grave.
The Weinstein Company has decided to release its documentary Bully without a US film rating after failing by 1 vote to persuade the Motion Picture Association of America to change to one that is less restrictive. Bully director Lee Hirsch said he still hoped the MPAA would change its mind at the documentary's red carpet premiere in Los Angeles. Releasing Bully unrated means anyone will be admitted where it's screened, but in the past many major theatre chains have spurned films without an MPAA rating.
That's all from me in this edition of World Panorama. I'll see you same time next week with more world news. For now, I leave you with these visuals from the old railway station in Jerusalem that transformed into an Arctic version of the Holy City by 35 sculptors for the first International Ice Festival.